Make It Yourselfers. I'm Dr. Tracy Ariza from Oh the Things We'll Make, and today I am going to show you how to make something that has to go with my career before becoming a blogger. Many of you who have been following my blog for a while now know that I obtained my Doctor of Dental Surgery degree from the University of Michigan in 2003. And so my background is in the study of dentistry. Since normally on my blog I make a lot of natural cosmetics and other things like soaps and skincare products, it's probably not surprising that I would venture into the world of do-it-yourself oral care. I already have a couple of toothpaste recipes on the blog, and I also have a mouthwash recipe. But there are a few other types of toothpaste and tooth care products that I want to be sharing with you over the next couple of weeks. Today I want to make what I think is more of a regular type toothpaste. This toothpaste most closely resembles what you would find or buy in a natural supermarket or something like that. In the past, I shared with you how to make a clay-based toothpaste. And a lot of people like these. They are naturally based. There are a couple of problems with a clay-based toothpaste. One of the problems is the mouthfeel. It just doesn't feel like a typical toothpaste that you would buy in a store. This is especially true if you mix up the clay with oils. And that's what most homemade toothpastes use. They would use a combination of a clay and an oil. And then if you decide to mix the clay with water, there's always the problem of preserving it. Anytime you have water in a homemade product, you're going to have to worry about preserving it some way. In the clay-based toothpaste with water on my blog, I used a high pH to help prevent microbial growth. And this is great for toothpaste because a higher pH or an alkaline environment is also good for neutralizing the acids that are formed by the bacteria in your dental plaque, and that's what can lead to cavity formation. The problem is, without doing some sort of microbial testing, it's very difficult to know how long your homemade toothpaste is good for. While the high pH should help keep your toothpaste safe for a while, without actually doing testing, it's really impossible to know. And that is why I recommended making very small batches if you are using the water version, and then throw it out, make a new batch often. The other problem with using a clay-based toothpaste is that clays often are contaminated with heavy metals and other toxic substances like arsenic. Without having chemical testing done on the clays that you have purchased, it's really hard to know how safe your homemade toothpaste really is. That's why I decided today to formulate a new type of toothpaste. This toothpaste does not use any clay whatsoever. While you could add a little bit of kaolin white clay or bentonite if you really like using clay in your toothpaste, I've eliminated it completely. To keep this toothpaste safe from microbial growth, we're going to be using glycerin as the humectant for our toothpaste. When using glycerin at a high enough concentration and water at a low enough concentration, we really don't have to worry about microbial growth generally in a product like this. Plus, this product already has a high alkaline pH, so that's just going to be working in our favor. It's going to make it very inhospitable for the microbes that we don't want growing in this. Now, just for one extra step, when you do make your toothpaste, you'll want to store it in something like a silicone travel tube. If you can find a food-grade silicone travel tube, that is great. Or there are also toothpaste tubes online that you can buy, or even lip gloss tubes that you can use for storing your toothpaste. The reason you want to do that is because if you are dispensing it from a tube, you don't have to worry about contaminating your toothpaste every time you use it. So you really don't want to be dipping in your toothbrush into your toothpaste. It's much better to dispense it out. All right, let me show you what we're going to be using as the base of this toothpaste. I'm going to be using 50 grams of calcium carbonate. It's white, it's mildly abrasive. That will help polish your teeth and help cleanse them. 20 grams of baking soda. Baking soda is often found in toothpaste. It's cleansing, it's also mildly abrasive, and it just helps freshen up your mouth. To add a little bit of sweetness and also aid in fighting against cavities, I am going to be adding 10 grams of xylitol. Xylitol is toxic for pets, so you don't want to be using xylitol if you are going to be using a toothpaste on your dogs. I'm not sure about cats, I'd have to look into that, but just keep that in mind. It's great, it's been shown to help prevent cavities in people, and it adds a bit of sweetness, but don't use it if you are going to be making this for your pets. For the liquid ingredients, I am going to be using 50 grams of glycerin. This is a vegetable glycerin. That's what's going to moisten this toothpaste and help make it into a paste and just keep it from drying out. And unlike water, we don't have to worry as much about needing a preservative when we use this as our main base. I know in the natural communities, there is a lot of controversy about using glycerin in toothpaste. I haven't been able to find any compelling evidence to show that glycerin has this problematic tendency to coat your teeth in a film that can't be removed and that will prevent remineralization from your teeth. My son, who is 12 years old now, has been using the same glycerin-based toothpaste all of his life. It is a non-fluoride glycerin-based toothpaste that was made for babies and toddlers, but he got so used to it that I haven't been able to change him to a different toothpaste. He just loves its mild flavor. He doesn't want one that tastes like mint. He just wants this very mild toothpaste. He's been using it his entire life and he has never had a cavity. We've never had any problems with demineralization, problems with his teeth not remineralizing after he has sugar or any sort of acidic foods. It's anecdotal evidence that glycerin-based toothpaste isn't really that bad. To keep the toothpaste from being very sticky, because glycerin tends to give a little bit of a sticky feel, I am going to be adding a little bit of water, but I will be adding much less water than glycerin. I have about 20 grams here now, but the water I like to add when I'm actually mixing up the toothpaste, and I add it little by little until I get the consistency I want. So the 20 grams is a guideline. I think that's around what I added last time in my last batch, but I'm going to be adding it little by little, so we'll see. Now I'm also adding one very optional ingredient, but this is to make it more like a typical professional grade toothpaste that you would buy. And I am going to be using a surfactant. Now surfactants are foaming agents, they're cleansing agents, so this will help with cleansing, but it also gives you that foaming sensation that you're used to in store-bought toothpaste. Now, many store-bought toothpaste use sodium lauryl sulfate, which is an anionic surfactant that is quite harsh. I don't have a problem using sodium lauryl sulfate for something like a homemade laundry detergent. You can see that recipe here. But I don't like to use it in any of my homemade cosmetics. I look for much more natural and gentle surfactants. I wasn't exactly sure what surfactant would be the best to use in a homemade toothpaste. So what I did was consult some of the toothpaste that were for sale in the natural supermarket, Most of them used disodium or sodium cocoyl glutamate. And this was not a surfactant that I was using in the past, and I'm sure you can use pretty much any of the natural surfactants that you have at home. But I decided that for this purpose, since I'd seen it used in so many toothpaste, that I would invest into it and give it a try. And I figured it would also be good for other skin cleansers and other uses. I was able to find the sodium cocoyl glutamate in both liquid and powder form. Today I am going to be using the liquid form, but you can use either. As you can see, we're using powdered ingredients. You can incorporate it in, and you can also just incorporate it in with the liquids and just use more or less water depending on the consistency you want and depending on the surfactant that you used or didn't use. Now, to add a refreshing mint flavor, I'm going to be using a couple of grams of peppermint essential oil. You can use other essential oils. Common ones for toothpaste are clove oil, which is often used in a lot of tooth products. You could also use something like spearmint or wintergreen. I'm just using peppermint. Ideally, you want to use a food grade essential oil. You're not going to want to be swallowing this anyways. You're just going to want to brush your teeth with it and spit it out afterwards. But it still is best to use the highest quality food grade products and dispensers when possible. The thing I like about making your own toothpaste is, again, you can adjust this to suit your taste. You can add the flavor you want by changing out the essential oil or not using one at all. If you don't want sweetness, you don't have to use the xylitol, although I recommend using it just because of its cavity-fighting properties. I often get questions about substituting it for something like stevia, and I really don't recommend it because stevia isn't known to have those same cavity-fighting properties. Plus, there are different types of stevia. You don't know what's going to be in it. And you can also adjust how much surfactant to use. I've actually bought some store-bought toothpaste that were just too foamy. They had way too much surfactant for my taste. And you can adjust it when you make your own. So I'm only going to use about 2 grams of the surfactant. But if you like a foamy toothpaste, feel free to add a little bit more. With that introduction, let's get to it and mix this up. This is going to be really simple, and I hope you enjoy this. Well, I have weighed out all of these ingredients to keep my batches consistent. This is one of those cases where you can kind of eyeball it. This is a very forgiving recipe, and because we aren't too concerned about needing a preservative in this case, we don't have to know the exact weight to be able to calculate the exact amount of preservative that we'll be using. I'm going to be mixing this up here in a glass jar. I normally just use a glass rod stirrer, and because this will get quite thick, you want it a paste-like consistency. I decided to use a jar that was wide enough for an immersion blender. You can use this if you want a very smooth toothpaste and you're having a hard time getting it all to mix in well. I'm going to begin by adding the calcium carbonate to my jar. I will now add the baking soda. If you like, you can also add a little bit of salt, like what I incorporated into my other homemade toothpaste. You can take a look at some of the other possible additives. Some people like a little bit of cocoa powder in their toothpaste, and I explain a little bit more about why you could add some of these things to your toothpaste if you like. But today I'm just leaving it out. I'm going to now add the xylitol. Now that I have incorporated all of the dry ingredients and blended them together, I am going to be adding my surfactant. I want the surfactant well distributed in the toothpaste, so I'm going to be adding that first and mixing it in well. I'm also going to add a few drops of peppermint essential oil. you want to make a homemade tooth powder, you can actually just stop at this point once you've mixed all these ingredients together, and there's your tooth powder. So that's about 5 drops. In this case, I'm not weighing it out because I'm not coming anywhere near the gram mark, so I'm not concerned about going overboard in this case. Peppermint essential oil has quite a potent flavor, so you really don't need to add much. Now I'm going to incorporate my vegetable glycerin. Using a whisk was not the best idea for incorporating the glycerin in the wet ingredients, and you'll see that in a sec. I ended up using a spatula, but you can just use a stainless steel spoon or whatever you have. At first, you'll notice that the top layers are quite easy to stir in, but then it will get harder as you try to incorporate all of the solids on the bottom. And that's why we are going to be wanting to add a little bit of water to this. It'll make it less sticky and it will make it more of a toothpaste consistency. Now to help add the water little by little so that I don't add too much and go overboard and make too thin of a toothpaste, I'm going to be using this little guy. It's the LaQ Deco pen that I use quite often to fill molds of things. In this case, I'm going to be using it to just drizzle in a little bit of water little by little. Add your water little by little and stir in with each addition until you are happy with the consistency. I find that if I start pouring in water, I add too much and I almost always make it too thin for my taste. And this is the best way that I've found to prevent that. Make sure you get down to the bottom and incorporate all of the powder that will probably be sticking to the bottom and get some liquid down in there. I've decided I'm not even going to bother with either the blender or the milk frother just because this is a really nice consistency already and I feel like I'll lose a lot of the product onto the beater. Trying to clean it off just wouldn't be worth it. All that's really left to do is to put this into the storage container. I'm going to be using the silicone tube and then you can brush with it. I found that the easiest way to fill up the tubes is to grab a little bit of the toothpaste and then hold the tube, pressing out some of the air, and then when you let go, it will kind of suction the toothpaste into it. And then you can also tap it on your work surface and that will help bring it in. And there you have your finished toothpaste. You can dispense it from the tube like that. I'm using an electric toothbrush here. That's all there is to it. Just use it as you would any other toothpaste. With electric toothbrush, I like to let the toothbrush do its thing and I just glide it along each tooth surface and along the gum line. You can see how I just go along each of the surfaces and I go along the gum and I let it do its circular motion. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and I would love for you to subscribe so you don't miss any of my videos. Until next time.